Thank you, Glenn. Welcome everybody to the first International Black Summit interview podcast. We're going to be hosting monthly podcast sessions, and we welcome you, those of you who have participated in the International Black Summit in the past, and those of you for whom the International Black Summit is a completely new thing. We welcome you. And for those of you who don't know about the International Black Summit, we are an organization that was created in 1991. And our purpose is to provide an opportunity for our participants to bring into being their vision for the Black community and the world. I'm Grace Lawrence, and with me tonight is Glenn Greenidge.
Welcome, welcome.
And we're going to be interviewing Adrienne Coddett. Adrienne Coddett is a past participant of the International Black Summit, a past facilitator of the International Black Summit, a past registrar of the International Black Summit, and just an all-around wonderful human being. I want to say a few things about Adrienne, just for those of you who may not know her or know about her. She's a fantastic human being, and she's an educator who works with empowering Black youth to fulfill on their visions for their lives, their families, their communities. So just a little bit about Adrienne. I'm just going to go over some of what it says here. So Adrienne is a community activist and advocate and high school educator. Her organization, Three Dreads and a Bald Head, Be More Community, was founded in 2000, and it provides opportunities for people in Black communities to transform their lives by maximizing their physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional potential. Adrienne is also well known in Ottawa as one of the 5 co-hosts of Black on Black, which is an Ottawa weekly connection to African and Caribbean communities, and which broadcasts every Saturday morning from 11 a.m. to noon on the University of Ottawa's radio station, CHUO 89.1 FM. So welcome, Adrienne. Please join us. Welcome, welcome. So Adrienne, there you are, welcome. So for those of you who are listening to the audio, Adrienne has now joined us in our virtual studio. And we just want to say thank you for being with us tonight, Adrienne. We're looking forward to having this conversation with you, really looking at and exploring what you got out of participating in the International Black Summit and how you use the tools of the International Black Summit, the tools and the distinctions in your work, in your career, with Black youth, and in your own life. So welcome.
I got it. Go ahead, try it now. Unmute yourself now. There you go.
Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome.
Wow, what's up, fam?
Hey, how you doing?
Hey,
Welcome.
How it be, what it be like. Oh, it's so good to see your faces.
Great to see you.
Chilling here, raising in the snow. You know how it be.
I'm with you. It's April and it's still cold in Toronto, I'll tell you.
Yeah, a few more flurries just to keep you on your toes, keep all those folks who think shorts are appropriate. I'm like, there's nowhere to go if you start in April with shorts. Like, where do you go after that? So we holding it down. Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks.
Well, we're very excited to have you, and looking forward to the many conversations that we'll have tonight around you and the work that you do and your relationship to the International Black Summit.
Lifelong lovers.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Summit tears, right?
Summit tears. Summit survivor. I'm a Summit survivor.
Summit survivor. Ooh, we have to get into that tonight. I know exactly what you're talking about. So Adrienne, when was your first International Black Summit event? Like, what event? Was it a prerequisite? Was it an annual event? Like, what was your first exposure?
Well, I was actually forced to think about that, of course, about 30 minutes before we went on air. No, I just realized that today, actually, when I thought about it. I was trying, I had a calculator out doing the math in case you ask me like how long it is. I want to make sure I get the numbers right. And this is actually my 20th anniversary of
Woo!
my first actual summit event. So my first summit was Toronto, 2002. So this morning when I woke up, I said, well, Lord, 20 years ago, my life was a rightful mess around this same time. This same time 20 years ago. Goodness gracious. But really and truly, the story begins with the summit from the year before, the 2001 summit event, because that's the summit event that I was actually introduced to. And leading up to that event, because Jackie and Dawn were going, we used our radio show immediately as an opportunity to amplify the message of the summit, to enfold folks in coming, share the declaration. And from the moment that we read it on air and we had Bill Davis as our guest on air, I was like, okay, whatever I've got to do, I'm gonna do. But in 2001, my life was not yet in a situation that would have allowed me to go to that summit. I was on my last year contract to be one of the spokespersons of North America's carnivals, which included Caravana and Ottawa and a bunch of other carnivals that don't make no sense, but it's all good. So I had to be in Toronto in person that same weekend. But since that was the last year of my contract, I was like, okay, if you all are going to have this event every year around this time, and it's going to be in Toronto, I'm used to coming down anyway. I will take up the space to do that. And I have to admit, my friends thought I'd lost it because they were calling me during the entire weekend. My phone is ringing. Adrienne, where are you? I don't see you on the road. What you doing? What kind of meeting? In a meeting? Caravana weekend? Who is in a meeting? Caravana weekend? And I just kept saying, it's like, yo, I'm in this important meeting. And they're like, man, stop stripping this and just come on. And I mean, we went out there with other participants when we had a break, but I really did go cold turkey on that. And I never attended a Caravana again until I don't know when. But yeah, it's 2001 technically, but 2002 was my first summit event.
Adrienne, for some of the American and other hemispheres, let them explain to them what Caravana is and why it's so important to the West Indian community in Canada.
I mean, this is a pilgrimage of carnival events, with this being the grand papa of them all. It's the largest carnival event in North America. People at its height and heyday, approximately 3 million people traveled into the Toronto area on the first weekend of August. It's a holiday here in Canada, a long weekend that is now Emancipation Day weekend. And it was part of what we did growing up in that carnival understanding, established at the 1967 mark. It becomes one of the longest lasting elements of Caribbean folks in Canada's contribution to the history of this country. So if you were from the Caribbean, this was like, you've been doing this from since you were knee high to a grasshopper, going down there. And then when you got to be a young adult and you didn't have to be tethered to parents and you could carry on and join a band and get in a costume and get on the truck and be a reveler, be a masquerader, this seemed to be a rite of passage. And I really did believe it was going to be my life forever and ever and ever again. But
and just to let folks know, it wasn't just Canadians who attended. So we're talking about all over the Caribbean would come up. We're talking about all the Americans that had any kind of affinity to carnival, because this was the closest carnival in North America to come to, and was the biggest, one of the biggest ones. And of course,
And
we had one.
yeah,
We had one in New York, but
yeah, yeah, and
Toronto
it's
Carnival.
happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's happening in, one of the most multicultural cities in the world. I heard Kyle Lowry, who used to play for the Raptors. When he came to Toronto, he called it a clean New York. And so
Which is true.
We're trying
Absolutely.
to still be clean. We're trying. But I, the Torontonian, I grew up with that caravan. A lot of people know about the Brazilian carnival in Rio. They know about, all of that. And many people know about the carnival in Trinidad. But anybody who knows about carnival now also knows about the carnival or Caravana. It's changed its name. We still call it Caravana.
we still call it that.
I mean, whatever the new name is, who knows? But it's still it's still Caravana. And I remember as a kid, because when I grew up as a kid, Toronto was very much a clean city. It's not as clean as it used to be, and very staid, very Protestant, very square, and had strict rules around a parade. A parade went down the street. There were barriers. You stood on the outside of the barriers and you watched the parade go by. And Caravana came and was like, "What kind of thing is this? You have to jump inside the parade." you don't
It's been one of the most fascinating things. It's been one of the most fascinating things to try to be the person who has to convince a city council that this is okay to do. We're like, yeah, no, it's not Santa Claus. It's like a rolling concert. You should have heard the things we've had to say to city councils to be able to get endorsement for this. And, Caravana has had its ups and downs, and it's started off as a very community-based understanding, and, continues to have pretty deep roots in Toronto's Caribbean communities. And it represents the carnivals that are outside of the sort of season that you mentioned, which New Orleans, Brazil, Trinidad being the big three that are, just at the end of the, just before, the Lent period, fasting period for Christians. Carnival Tuesdays, the day before Ash Wednesday. So you got to get it out of your system. And the other carnivals that follow will be related more to either Emancipation Day or harvest, crop over, emancipation time. So Caravana falls around the carnivals of the Eastern Caribbean states. So you can jump off from Caravana and you can head to Barbados, Antigua, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Grenada, and enjoy their carnivals that are around the same weekend as well.
So the summit was able to pull you away from all of that. So I want to hear, so what was that experience was like to have you have this phenomenal experience being in the middle of everything, and you not be part of that and to be part of the International Black Summit. So tell us a little bit about what that experience was at your first summit, and what you got from it.
So my first summit had really begun the way in which I got into registration. So Jackie had put her, Jackie Ottawa had put her name forward after she attended her first event. She came back from that first event and she just kept saying, "Oh Lord, the thing was powerful. It was a powerful experience." And we should have just maybe asked a few more questions about what that might have meant, but we didn't. So we were all like, she's like, "They're coming to Toronto next year. This is what's up." And I'm on the registration team. So we're going to get y'all registered. Don't worry. We got you. I think one of the first things that caught me was they held a leadership body and facilitator body meeting here in Ottawa in the April before the Toronto summit. And I still think that's one of the largest summit shares I've ever been to in my life. Jackie Ottawa, who has roots in our federal government, on the political scene, decides of all things, it's totally hilarious because this place has been so unwelcoming to Black people like forever. And even this year with the trucker convoy, when I think about the International Black Summit held a summit share on Parliament Hill in Center Block. Like, are you kidding me? Like, really, truly, like, just let's really ground ourselves in this really situation that we're doing here. Unwelcoming to Black people. So much so you've been elected as a Black person and you're like, get me the hell out of here. These people don't roll. And we had a summit share with more than 100 plus people in the room, many of whom have traveled to be part of this facilitator meeting. So I begin meeting some of the individuals who I now call family. And one of my most memorable moments, I had maybe had locks by 2002. I've had locks for maybe just under a decade. And when I started my locks myself, I, was looking for someone else to like, get me looking sexy, like they got you looking sexy in Essence magazine. So I noticed that in Essence magazine, there was always Kafele, Derek Scurry, and they worked at this salon called Locks and Chops. I was like, I like that name. I'm just going to make an appointment. I'm going to be in New York for March break. I'm going to make an appointment. I'm going to go. And so I went. And then shortly after that, my mom decided she was going to start Locks. I thought she's full of nonsense, so I didn't believe her. So I took her to Locks and Chops. And when she went to have her appointment, I waited for her. But there was this guy in the salon, and he was on the phone, and he was carrying on with the phone company, cussing a sweet cuss, like a sweet, 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 sweet cuss that is music to my ears. When I heard it, I was like, oh my God, this like love songs. And I remember flashing an eye at my mom and going, Mom, that fella telling you he's from Guyana. I'm telling you he's from Guyana. Fast forward to this summit share. We're now into the casual part. And I see this brother who I'm looking at the whole time. And I'm like, I've seen this guy before, but it's irrational. I don't really know. And he puts on a sweatshirt, says Locks and Chops. I walked right up to him and I was like, oh my God, that's you. It was you who was cussing the day I was up in there with my and we've been in love ever since. And after that, I mean, driving folks around, picking them up at the airport, making sure the meeting had whatever it needed to have. Sound familiar? Yes. I was doing that before my first summit. I took a whole group to a party after y'all got out of whatever long ass meeting that I couldn't attend because there were rules back then. If you hadn't attended the summit, you couldn't come to the meeting. So I wasn't even allowed to come to the meeting. And we would joke. He's like, well, I'm working for these people already and even come to the thing yet. Somebody said they needed a logo that looked like Toronto. I found the logo. They said it's going to be for the name tags. So all of a sudden, I'm putting together name tags. I'm seeing all these names. I'm like, ooh, Lord, these are some curious and interesting names. I said, well, I can't wait to find out who this Chicasha chick is. Or I had all the names in my head because I'd been doing these name tags for weeks leading up to the event. And even my prerequisite course was the Thursday. I had to put out the name tags before I could go into my prerequisite. And then on the Friday, I remember that's how I met Juliet Williams. She was there bright and early, looking at us hard, talking about these people, Black people are so disorganized. They don't even have the name tags straight. And it's already in your grill. And I remember, name changes. Please do change my name. That's not my name anymore. I wanted this name on my name tag. And back then, that meant several late night at the Kinko's because there was nothing happening on site. So I spent most of my evenings at the Kinko's doing name tags. I spent my day with my group in the summit conversation. And I spent my evenings hanging out hard with participants. So it felt like home. Was everything I wanted. I was like liming and enlightenment.
It's interesting. You talk about having given up, well, quote unquote, given up the Caravana and attending Caravana, but you got so much more, because one of the things, or at least I say, we get so much more, because one of the things about the International Black Summit and the transformation and the personal growth and the emotional expansion and all of that that comes with the conversation, the tools, the distinctions of the International Black Summit is we also have fun. We do how we do, right? We have fun, we dance. One of the things I love about an International Black Summit is that there isn't an International Black Summit where I haven't been on a dance, but we will dance in the middle of a hallway. Right? Anywhere. We're throwing on the music, and that music is facilitated, as we know.
Absolutely.
And the people managing that music catch a vibe and cause transformation through music. I don't even know where to go with all of that. So I think that it's just a wonderful thing, the way that we engage the International Black Summit.
Well, absolutely. Adrienne, I know that you have been a school teacher and involved in lots of youth kinds of activities, and you actually also formulated a relationship with the International Black Summit and one of your programs. But tell us a little bit about the work that you do with youth, and then tell us a little bit about the program that you actually incorporated some facilitators for the International Black Summit to participate, and not just them, but the community and the youth.
Yeah, sitting in that room at 34, 20 years ago, I was very concerned with three things. I still have the notebook. I was not well physically. I had just actually taken a round of radiation treatment for Graves' disease, which is hyperthyroidism, something that I had been battling for about 4 years from when I started teaching until February of 2002, where I finally gave into the treatment itself, or having the treatment. My finances were in the toilet, and I was finding myself, that's actually it, that boom, the universe told you. I was finding myself. I was trying to figure out, at that stage in my 30s, like who was this identity? Because this was a new identity. I'd been an athlete for a significant part of my life. It had been so part of my life. I was lost about what to do next. And I had started teaching, and I was educational assistant. So I was trying to find my way there. But I left that room clear, not fixed, but clear about something that was possible. And if it was possible for me at 34, I started to imagine, 4 years into being a high school teacher, what would be possible if this was introduced to the students that I work with. I had met an amazing young person coming out of the summit space in the youth summit. And I started thinking that, the first thing to do with my organization that needed to be, pushed a little bit, to get some youth and let youth sort of find their own way, with the support of us as a community. And by 2004, I created the way, because we were going to Ghana. And I brought Gary Gallimore and Soyini Cornett. I got around the youth rule by bringing former high school students. And the commitment that we made with each other was that the two of them would, inspired by what they were figuring out about their own lives as 20-something-year-olds, take on running and coordinating and creating inside of the youth space for Three Dreads and a Bald Head. And that's where it began. By 2005, we were having our very first, or 2004 also, we were having our very first gathering of Black youth, which we call the Black Youth Conference Day. And that took off. that allowed us to then invite facilitators from the summit, youth summit, to come and join us. And that became an enrollment tool for youth, to have everybody come up here every February to enjoy a weekend, one day at first, and then it became a whole weekend, till when we couldn't do it just once a year. We were imagining possibilities of being together, continuing the conversation as youth all year. And that's what led to the creation of the Leadership Academy, that created facilitators like Ali Lual, that would then be fully engaged in creating and cross-creating between the summit and what we were doing here locally. But for my teaching career, what I've been able to build and create was to finally be able to bring the International Black Summit into a classroom, something that I imagined from the very beginning. And I just couldn't figure out what to call it. I needed to call it that it's the International Black Summit, but I couldn't say that to the school district. So this is the side event called the Black Youth Conference Day, which is really just a youth summit, really. But we had to, switcheroo the labels. And it's like, we know what it is. They don't necessarily need to be attached to what we know that it is. It's this same purpose manifesting itself regionally through this opportunity. And I'll say, I'm sure you're going to get to it in another question. What has now been the legacy of that has actually finally been that thing come true. Because what we did for Black Youth Conference Day, what we do for International Black Youth Summit, is now a credit that students of the Ottawa Carleton District School Board can earn while they build their way from November through to June in their annual event known as the Black Youth Forum.
Excellent. Wow.
That's
Wow.
fantastic.
Kudos.
That's fantastic.
So tell folks a little bit about what kinds of things and skills that are gained at these events, so that people can really get their arms around.
Before we go there, Glenn, I just want to remind people that the purpose of the International Black Summit is to provide an opportunity for participants to bring into being their vision for the Black community and the world. And the Youth Summit has a slant and a slightly different expanded purpose related to that. And so providing these youth with that opportunity to bring into being their vision for the Black community and the world, and to fulfill on the Youth Summit purpose as well, is such a fantastic thing. And also to mention, because you talk about going to Ghana, also to mention that the International Black Summit has a number of different programs and events, including an annual event that's held in August each year somewhere in the world. And that annual event has been held in many countries around the world, many locations around the world, all over the United States, here in Canada, Toronto, Ottawa. It's been held in Ghana, it's been held in London, England, it's been held in Brazil, it's been held in South Africa, it's been held in Jamaica, like all over Memphis, Tennessee, Florida, Atlanta, New York, Detroit. all over. So just wanted to give people a little bit of background about that.
Great. Thank you, Grace.
And so to answer your question, Glenn, I think we got to give a summit answer. We give people nothing. We give them nothing. We do, though, provide an opportunity. And we allow for a condition and space to have people be clear so that they can build whatever that thing is for their lives, for what they see. We disrupt conversations that we have in our head about who we can be, whatever form it comes. We see ourselves as disruptors to that. So when I think about the model that I've now been able to articulate in a classroom and to train educators and to train myself as an educator, DRC, deconstruct, reconstruct, to construct. Filled then with the cosmology and the distinctions, I can now use those in a classroom to, shake things up as far as conversations that keep us stuck in the way that we might be trying to avoid confronting the amazing that we are as people. And when you get to do that and see that occur in young people, you even my cynical, crusty friggin' self is able to know that magic is one thing. There's magic. I can't explain that magic, but what I have seen all over the world occur for people who, from the registration point of view, I watched how you came in the room on the Thursday, and I saw and watched all of what it took for you to come out of that room on Sunday. Shit, you can't tell me magic can't happen. And I've seen it in the best possible way ever. I've seen it in me. So I don't need any other testimony to know that there is something incredibly available and possible for people who have a facilitation of their lives such that they can be their vision fulfilled.
Let me
So that's great. That's so great. One of the things you talked about is distinctions. And so distinctions are some of the tools that are utilized, that people get to utilize in their conversation about themselves and about the people around them, as you said, and it has them break up their who they know themselves to be and are able to invent themselves newly. What were some of the distinctions that you enjoyed or that you were confronted by in your first summit, and give us a little taste of what you encountered?
Yeah, and I'd like to know what your favorite International Black Summit distinction is. What's your favorite one?
My favorite one? Oh man, I think it depends, but my first group, I was confronted by the power of five, and how in sitting across from four people who claimed some random selection in the room. When they send you to go pick a group, I'm one of those people that like linger back and like hope, oh, well, all the groups are taken. I'll be left out of the group work and I can work by myself. So I remember when they, say, okay, go find your five. And, I wasn't right out the gate. I wasn't kind of in the middle, but I wasn't at the end. I was like somewhere between the middle and the, group. I saw people matching up and I started panicking. I'm like, oh my God, if I don't get with a good group, what's going to happen? I'm going to ruin my opportunity. Adrienne, you came to the summit to learn some shit. Look at you, you're already screwing this up. And then, somebody nudged me maybe, and this group formed. And I remember sitting across from this group and I was like, okay, there are four versions of me coming back to me right now. And I don't know what to do about that right now. And, going through that, but leaving the space with the question, and then tracking all of that throughout the year, I found my struggle was often distracted by trying to give the question more meaning, or what was it? I wasn't answering it correctly, or anything like that. And so I just found that in trying to figure that out, it kept me present to something throughout my year, which was important for me. And as far as my favorite distinction, it does depend on the day, but probably clearing. But I will recall and do recall my use inside of a particular trick. I was fortunate to learn from a master facilitator, the distinction of no out there. but to take no out there like as far and ridiculous, so it can really highlight how ridiculous you're being in that moment. So I'll give you an example. When we were in London, we had a participant who got a parking ticket outside of and a boot, a parking ticket and a boot on her car outside of the London Summit. So I was like trying to fix this, but this was like a lot of money and it seemed hard to fix, but the summit space takes care of people. So that's what occurred. We took care of the boot and got the tickets taken care of and got the boot off. All right, good. The real quarrel was because she was driving participants who had some disabilities, physical disabilities. She felt like the universe should just kind of compensate that. Like, I'm doing this good deed, so you shouldn't just give me a ticket, no matter how there is no handicap parking on this road, period. Okay. Not a one. And there's all kind of signs say, hi, try park here and see if you don't get a ticket. Like, it's all kind of signs. And there's a casino across the street. Good. So day 2, participant gets another ticket, but does come into registration with a challenge to the universe. He said, make them give me a ticket today. Watch and see. Make them give me one. And by noon, the concierge comes running into registration. He's like, that lady car got another boot on it. Like, oh Lord. Are you kidding me? So now my whole stomach is paining me. I have to go downstairs and tell this woman her car has the next boot. And I saw how she carried on the first day. So I'm like, this is going to be a problem. But across the street, the gigantic P, it's blinking, parking. I'm like, oh my God, I've solved the mystery. I tell her, sister, yes, this has occurred. Got it. But you know what? Park and cross the road. She looks at me and she tells me something about £9 a day. You expect me to pay £9 a day? It's like, as opposed to the £600 you just paid. I was like, got it. It's our fault for having the summit on this street. Is this street fault for being in this part of town? Is this part of town fault for being in London? Is London fault for being in UK? Shoot, it's Great Britain fault for slavery. I was like, oh my goodness, how is that conversation so present for when you trying to manipulate to get what you want instead of just do the work, Adrienne? This is how you end up in these situations. You take things too far instead of just do the simple thing like park across the street.
Yeah.
And it wasn't nothing about that, sister, but you got a chance, Adrienne, to take something so ridiculously far that even you had to stop and say, oh God, girl, stop now. Like, just stop and confront the thing that you are unwilling or unable to be with.
Which is another distinction, which is called trigger. But I actually wanted to go back to clearing. So you talked about clearing, and clearing is a way of removing the thoughts that are in your head. Say a little bit more about that distinction, clearing, and how you've been able to use it.
Yeah, and I think that actually connects me to why there are maybe certain distinctions that are important to people. It's kind of something that I've learned with my fearless furry friend, Furious Styles, that although we've gone to puppy school and we've learned all kinds of things, it was the first distinction that he learns and does best, which is to sit. He'll do it for every single thing. He knows that one well. So I would say that your first prerequisite course is like probably very important for cementing that thing that gives you that maybe first affinity to a distinction. And for me, in that clearing, it was in my prerequisite course where somebody said it that really had me be clear on what clearing was, when they described a yard that the grass is high and it's full of junk. you kind of stuck in what to do. You can't place anything new there. You can't do anything. Maybe you're even stuck and overwhelmed by how much it appears that you have to get out of the space in order to put something new there. But it really is true. Once your plate is filled, like where else are you going to put things? So clearing that, getting it all out of the way such that you can build, construct into that new space newly, not necessarily attached to something particular, but maybe still on a foundation of something that's familiar. So clearing, explained in that kind of way for me, was really the first distinction that I understood for operationalizing it into my life. And maybe that's why I'll choose it today as an example of my favorite. If you ask me tomorrow, that might be a different answer.
Well, you also mentioned trigger, and so trigger comes up a lot in my day-to-day life. Let the folks know what it was like for you.
Oh, we love that one in the Summit Space as well, though. That's one of our Summit Space favorites, trigger.
And we have a unique approach to trigger. I mean, most people are familiar with the word trigger and the word clearing and these kinds of things, but the way that the International Black Summit uses these words, it's different. It's why it's a distinction for us. We have a particular approach and way of using those terms as tools.
Absolutely. So neither positive or negative necessarily. I mean, that's the judgment I might place on the trigger afterwards, but something that kind of brings me to attention about something I'm maybe unable to be with or unwilling to be with, or I'm discomfort. It might feel like those things, like uncomfortable. I got this like embarrassment adjacent kind of thing that I go on with, where I don't want to see somebody be embarrassed. That's why I don't particularly like pranks or certain things for me to do to other people, because I don't want to embarrass anybody. So like when it happens, that's not happening over there, it's happening in here. How I've used that too in teacher training. I did a PD day last month where I found they were going to pay me money to essentially give white educators a talking to. They're bringing a bunch of black studies courses into the school district, and a bunch of white educators signed up for my workshop so that I could just give them a talking to. Like, look, you're a teacher. You teach irrelevant stuff you don't know all day, every day. So I don't know why all of a sudden you got a problem. Just do your job, page one, day one, and don't be an asshole. Workshop done. So one lady starts saying how, well, when I start talking about Black issues, this one student in my class seems uncomfortable. I said, well, how do you know that student's uncomfortable? Did you ask your student? Did the student expressly tell you they are uncomfortable? I said, so then I stopped right then. I said, "Oh boy!" And I looked in the participants. Is Jacqueline Lawrence from the OCDSB here? I said, "What you're expressing right now is what we call in the International Black Summit a trigger. You're being triggered by something that's not going on in the kid. That's you, sister. What are you uncomfortable about? Is showing up in that student, but it's not about the student. It's just you." And she kind of like, oh my God, I feel so. And that also shows too another aspect of the conversation. We've taken 10 years of Black Youth Conference, and we've given it to Black youth, and we've had some white youth also participate. When the youth decided that they needed a parallel space for the adults who came with the youth, they designed something in partnership to their youth curriculum for the adult curriculum. And that room has not had the you need to be a Black person kind of label to it. So that's been something that has been delivered to anybody who claims to be an adult. And we've seen the power of engaging in this conversation to folks who've been exposed to it. And so that's just another offering. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not there yet. I'm still under construction for the should white folks come and be part of this conversation. I'm still under construction, but I've seen it powerfully change opportunities for folks who are now in the language that we use today. They're allies, co-conspirators, and accomplices, and some of my most reliable for all three of those spaces in the school district.
That's great. You know, one of the things that you referred to, Adrienne, everything that you're sharing is just so powerful. And you talked earlier about the question when you were at your first summit in your group of 5, then looking at your question and taking that question into your life for the following year. And so just to mention for people who aren't familiar with this, at the International Black Summit annual event, we end the event each year with a question or an inquiry that participants are invited to live into and explore for the upcoming year until the next annual event. And so when you were looking at that question, do you recall what that question was, or any past questions that you particularly liked or worked with?
Or were engaging?
What is available when I consciously own all that I create? I was like,
what is available when I consciously own all that I create? I remember that one. That was a good question.
Like, all of it.
And exploring that question all year in your group or with others, you know, what's available when consciously owned?
Exactly.
What are you creating that you haven't owned? The good stuff, the accomplishments that you're not owning, and maybe some, you know, not as good stuff.
Oh, the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's all you, buddy. It's all me. It comes in the package. And so, you know, that I think too, in reflection now at 54, I get to see the like, you know, I'm seeing and feeling the experience of growth. I'm seeing and feeling the experience of being still stunted in some aspects of my life. I do feel, and I feel the demon still, but what I don't now feel is a necessity to be attached to any of those spaces as they emerge. I'm like, I'm zen about it now, because I'm like, okay, you know, is there really anything for me to do? No, it's just and you know, I can still see that I can contribute inside of my vision, even holding the considerations of my demons.
Oh,
Very powerful. Very powerful. So what would you say to someone who is contemplating, considering attending any of the International Summit events, especially the annual summit event?
I would say immerse yourself in your opportunity. One of the things that caused me to feel like the facilitator body was a space that I could take in. I know after the first event, I spent that first year, and then I got to the end of the year and I'm like, this thing don't work. These people, but you know what? They're going Brazil next year. So I can give them one more chance and see what happens. So, you know, after a little while, what I got was, oh, okay, after a summit event, if you want to get a bit of a refresher, if you want to feel like, you know, get a little perk in your enlightenment, in your transformation, you should probably attend those quarterly meetings, the leadership body meetings. It was a chance to reconnect, not only just with the relationships which were building for me, but were really important too, but to reconnect to the sort of essence of what inspired the conversation that year. You come together then. And then by 2005, I was like, I got to sit behind the curtain for the first time. And in 2005 in Miami, I went down to help Charlie. who was working the Miami angle. This was the year that we may have lost our minds, where we decided we're having 3 summits. Chicago,
At the same time.
Chicago, Miami, and then the nerve to have one in Jamaica too.
That's
Lost
right.
my mind. So we're gonna do 3 different summits, and I was on the destination to Miami. So I came, took my chance. I shot my shot. I like Charlie was going early. I'm like, I'm gonna come help you out. And set up everything. Yeah, yeah. She had the setup for the hotel and went all the meetings. She wanted you to come help her with all these things. And I remember coming into one of the facilitator meetings just to drop off something. And I remember Kat turning to me and she's like, well, you might as well just stay. And I was like, well, they got rules, Kat. Y'all got rules. Y'all, the rules say you got to do that stand up in front of everybody and say why you should be a facilitator. And then people are like, yeah, hell no. No.
We don't do that anymore. Maybe we'll bring it back.
Some folks say, well, yeah, I think she should, but can others hold your consideration about her and this and that? I'm like, I didn't do that at first. And I was like, no, I'm breaking the rules. So I kind of sat in the corner and I got behind the curtain. And I was like, all right, well, the next time they do the whole stand up in front of the room, I'm going to stand up in front of the room and I'm going to take my shot. And I did at the October meeting after Miami. And that's when I joined the facilitator body. And I was like, okay, these phone calls, these weekly, what the phone calls was weekly? Were we every week?
Weekly with your group.
Yes.
Weekly with your group. Look, this is when now you really do understand that to be a facilitator of this conversation, well, everyone is a facilitator of their lives. So if you involved and engage, you're a facilitator. But to be this group, this is an uncommon and unnatural commitment to be doing this work. And how it then shows up in not only the annual event, but in the relationships that you build with your group and your team and whoever else is present, you really get a heightened sense of something for your life that then, shows up in the space when we gather that collective energy. It's like when all the Marvel characters came together and, we fight Thanos and we win. And I really saw it as a way for folks to win. If you use that adversarial model, you can win in your life with this and hold all of the considerations for your life when you're like, I'm not that. And like, well, fake it till you make it. Or, whatever other mantra you need to kind of step out there and take the risk at first to discover that you're more powerful than you assumed yourself to be.
So great.
Absolutely.
So great. I don't know how much more time you have available to be with us, Adrienne, but we do have a few more questions. We're hoping to
Sure, hit me.
hang out with us a little bit longer.
When you got summit business, you got to carve out the night. So I'm good. It's Sunday.
Our meeting go until completion. Whatever is none of this. The meeting will be from 10 until 11.
Right.
None of that for
all right. So especially for I guess I get to talk like I'm some kind of OG summit person, 20 years deep. But I do remember the longest, latest alignment in my 20 years. And I think that was Ghana. We were in that room until 5 a.m. trying to align on, I can't even remember what anymore, but it might have been a location or something. And who is left in that space? That is why we referred to you as a summit survivor. If you still up in there struggling to stay awake, trying to continue to just do the thing that we're called to do for an alignment, which is to get present and to remain present enough, no matter how much time has passed. It was bonkers when we were doing it, but when it finally got to that moment where we're like, boom, this is it. And everybody, so I remember that one most distinctly. 5 a.m. We came out, there was birds chirping and sun rising.
I'm sure I kicked myself off the island. I am clear. I was in Ghana. I was at that event, but I was not at that 5 a.m. meeting. I'm sure I was in my bed, leaving it and allowing the space. I was trusting the space. So, I mean, I haven't gotten into what the distinction alignment is for the International Black Summit. That's something that we can engage in another time, but it's a distinction and a process that we use in the International Black Summit.
That I might add is very unique to the summit space. I haven't encountered that in any of my other organizations over the years. And it really, just to say, just a brief, to say, it is a way that allows everyone to participate in moving forward. So it doesn't move forward unless everyone in the space is aligned. And I tell you, that's one of the most powerful things that I've seen inside the International Black Summit that I've never seen anywhere else. But anyway, go ahead.
Absolutely.
Go, Jackie Grace.
Well, just just looking at, first I want to ask about a couple of summit stories, because I know some of your summit stories and you would raise Caravana and Carnival and the theme of that and giving that up. And yet I remember stories around Brazil and the Carnival and a parade and and that experience with the summit, and then another summit where there was a post-summit to Anguilla's Carnival and all of that stuff. So I would love to hear you just share a little bit about how you have managed to weave your experience of Carnival into your experiences of the International Black Summit.
So I think I refer to it as the après summit, the space for rejuvenation and relaxation after a summit annual event. But weaving my love for how we come together and we generate inside of interpersonal spaces has been my favorite part of facilitating in the summit. So I remember in Brazil, we were setting up for our opening night event. And I remember the one part of the event had us in this gallery. And we were, this gallery is an important gallery to Salvador. It's the only Black-owned gallery, historically, Black family, blah, blah, blah. And then we were also asked to wear white. And so everybody complied with the request. We were wearing white. And then a Blocko band of women came to the front street outside and they began to play. And, this is the big drums. This is, and Salvador is unique. This is the original capital of Brazil. This is the capital of the province that has the largest African population outside of Africa, Bahia. 65 million people of African descent. So a Blocko drum in this part of the Brazil, this is going to be closer to the African origins and roots of Carnival. So they began to play. And as they play, we came down to the street. And then next thing you know, we're in a parade. They're taking us from the gallery to this other venue. And we're in a parade. There's people along the street. We're dancing to the Blocko band. And I don't know how we looked to those folks, but I was having a ball. We got to where we, the day and night place, and there was a big show. There was food. We were sitting in a place of prominence as visitors. This was just an amazing experience. later on during that trip, some of us would be at the market having fish. And we were with one of the translators for the summit. So the waitress spoke to him, and then he started laughing. So he said to me, he said, the waitress thinks you're a celebrity. I said, who she think I am? Because I had my head tied in a big white turban, and I'm wearing all white. Woo, I look like an Orisha. So I didn't know that our little parade situation was on the local news. And there's some shots of us. So this particular waitress, she's seen the local news and she recognized me from the local news. So she's asking him, like, what celebrity I am. So she's going to go get a piece of paper and bring for my autograph. I said, well, ask her again who she thinks I am, and then I'm gonna sign that person's name.
Oh my goodness.
So I've just experienced some righteous foolishness all over the world with you all. It's been amazing.
It's interesting. One of the things, just to bring you up to speed a little bit, Adrienne, about where we are right now this year as we move towards the 2022 annual summit event in August of this year, 2022. The leadership body recently aligned on the location of the 2022 annual summit event. So it will be virtual and physical and spiritual, and it will reflect where the freedom spirit of the Underground Railroad is. And so there's an opportunity for there to be locations of groupings of people, because the last 2 years we've had the annual event has been virtual only. Some people self-created their own little groupings as well. But reflecting where the freedom spirit of the Underground Railroad is. So there's an opportunity for people around the world and around the locations of the Underground Railroad to perhaps come together to create satellites or locations for this year's annual summit event. So our enfoldment manager is asking if you know of a person, organization, or community that might be interested in being a part of this year's annual summit event as a location.
Well, I think then that it's historically awesome that then this is also the anniversary of the journey of 14 ships from Halifax, Nova Scotia to Sierra Leone to build Freetown. This is the combination of Black loyalists, Jamaican Maroons, as well as those who came through the Underground Railroad. So this is that Canadian moment when, they say, go back to Africa. See, you know what? We already did. Okay, don't play with us. We're going to leave your asses here with all this cold rock if you keep playing with us, because we actually have a history of that being true. And this is like the 250th anniversary of that journey where people of African descent bought themselves free, and they were like, peace, see you in Africa. So I would say Halifax, the Citadel was originally built, and then when Maroons were tricked off of the mountain, they finished the job, and that is also a destination of the Underground Railroad. So Halifax has always shown up in the summit space as one of the places, not only physically but spiritually, that has been, the summit conversation has been drawn to. And we have many a participant from that area in the last 20 years who have, been inspired by this, and therefore are doing things in that community that are a direct connection to their participation in the International Black Summit.
That's great. That's great. Great. I think I have, I don't know about you, Glenn, I have one last question, and then maybe we can share this year's annual inquiry and the declaration of the International Black Summit.
Great.
So my last question for you, Adrienne, what are 3 wishes that you have for the world right now? You know what, before you answer that question, let me ask you this, because one of the things that we work on in the International Black Summit is participants clarifying their vision for the Black community and the world. What's your vision?
My vision is empowerment through laughter.
Empowerment through laughter. See how that just rolled off the tongue, Glenn?
Yep.
It was easy. From the from the first day, laughter is one of the most connecting things between people as an expression of our interpersonal relationship with each other. I can share a joke with even a person sitting in Glasgow. An old white man sits next to me and he says, "My people are like your people." I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna have to fight this guy." He said, "I'm gonna go." I said, I was like, I had that look on my face. I was like, I think I'm gonna have to fight this old white man. And you know, he shared a story about how his ancestors were enslaved by the British and taken to Treasure Beach, Jamaica. And I was like, "Oh, that's what you meant." And you know, you're able to share a laugh. That's an example of something that I've seen in the world that, you know, I've been able to share and experience. Generating it is renewable energy. And so, but what I'll say for my 3 things, especially over the last 2 years, woo, it's been hard, right? Standing in front of young people, trying to, thinking that you have words to explain what's occurring. To know that the student and you are feeling, especially students who look like you, are feeling the same sense of heavy. I remember that first virtual school model. I think I cried every single day in front of my students while I tried to teach them from the basement, which I had, by the time we did it the second time, I had to tell my principal, I said, "You better let me go into the school because this is a really bad idea. On the couch, I've been funking up, drinking on, participating in magical fairy dust things. I don't think this is a good place for me to be teaching children." Just a thought.
Not the right environment, huh?
Right? I'm like, really? This is where you want me to teach from? Come on now, the woman cave, this is stupid. And so one of the things that has been one of the most powerful things for my own life and to share with those young people and others, laughter, of course, empathy and grace. When I was able to now understand that, really, are you really going to try to ask this child for your law class homework while when they unmute themselves to reply, you can hear nothing but chaos in their background? Are you really going to try to ride this child because they didn't do assignment, blah, blah, blah? You know what? Content teachers, your content ain't shit. It might never have been. You gave it meaning, which means we can now give things other meaning. And so what I've seen in the last 2 years is by leading with empathy and grace for others, but very specifically for myself, I've been able to find a way that can allow for the radical reimagining of what school could be.
Mm.
Just like I done divorced that institution since from time, but we're living in the house together still as divorcees. And I like the money. I'm only in your pocket. Trust and believe. And when we get to June, we choose to vacation separately as lifelong lovers. And I was moving through very happily with that in mind in 2020. I said, I got 5 left on the clock and I'm gonna make it through. How will I be able to move forward? And then several fairly monumental things to my career have happened that then balances this world where I can be very overwhelmed by all the terrible going on in our world. And trust, there's not like terrible ain't taking no day off.
Right.
Terrible is busy every day. I don't even understand how these other wonderful things in our world don't have the same PR team as wicked and terrible and awful. And at the same time, I've been experiencing these amazing things that have changed opportunities for my life, have positioned me as a power broker for conversations that are essential in the spaces that I have capacity to do that disrupting in. And uh, I've even had white folks pay me to give them talking to. I'm gonna get Cash App, say white guilt dollars. I accept all white guilt dollars. I accept all of them because this is what one person said. She said, you know, Adrienne, when you were saying these things all those years ago, since we were in teachers college, no one was listening, it seemed like. And much of the struggle about whether I should just be behind the scenes or should I be the person in front that has the capacity to do something about things that are I'm not good with. That's been my struggle for a very long time. But I can see there is something that has created the conditions for the thing that we're now experiencing. And it's now time to also reinvent myself moving forward. So once again, I'm in that same space 20 years later where I don't know what's available, but I can only be a student with the guidance of my past and the hopes for my future and say, whatever it is, it's going to be friggin' amazing. Trust and believe it's going to be amazing because it's been an amazing ride. And if I say one last thing about one of my students last week on the chat, it's like, damn, Miss Cadet has like had 1,000 lives. I was like, I really have. I've forgotten 998 of them most days. When I start remembering some of the things that I've had opportunity to do, that reminds me of my mom when she said, she's like, how do you get yourself involved in these things? Get in my own way has always worked. So I'll continue to be guided by that.
Blessings to your mother.
Yes.
Blessings
Yeah.
to your mom.
Yes.
Absolutely. And, you know, you talked about this because I do know that the Ottawa Carleton District School Board has given you the Director's Citation Award as of 2021. I also know that you are one of the Canadian Broadcasting Company Corporation for Ottawa, one of their 2020 trailblazers. You know?
Yeah.
And of course,
I
you also have your Investing in People Award from the Ottawa Community Foundation. So people have been recognizing you. You know,
yes,
you ain't
yes, yeah.
slick, you ain't slick, girl. We see you.
I I pray often that my students don't Google me during class because then, because I said, hey, I'm just your law teacher. And then one sets it off and then all hell breaks loose. But it's in that being able to take advantage of opportunities and dive in and be known that that's what I was struggling with, finding my own way of doing it. I had a very big footprint from my parents uh, of what it should look like or could look like. And as a young adult, I didn't navigate that well, being the child of well-known people in the community. I joke sometimes. I say, "Whoa, when the cadet children get in trouble, boy, it's public." It was public information when the cadet children get in trouble. Everybody knew. And I kind of really disliked that by the time I was in my late teens and early 20s. So finding my own way and what that meant for me and what I would do, is something that I now can say has had a highlight reel of moments that I never would have uh, fully believed somebody saying so when I was younger. But that's part of the the demon. I was willing sometimes to do the bad to make that good work, and now I just get to do the good to make the good work. So
All right.
I learned that from Perry, Big Perry. He said something to me one time and about a choice that he was going to have to make for business, and he's like, he discovered he could do well while doing good, and do good while doing well, and I've held that as an important mantra to guide myself, making sure that I try not to do the crooked to make the straight work.
All right. You can do the straight to make the straight.
Do the
That's
straight
right.
to make the straight work.
All right. Thank you so much for being with us this evening, Adrienne. It's been a pleasure. And just to share with you, the 2021 annual question or inquiry is this: when I allow space, I become present to who I am. I'm going to repeat that. When I allow space, I become present to who I am. And Ms. Coddett, I'm clear you are present to who you are and you're sharing it with the world.
I am.
Sharing it
You're
with the world.
speaking to my spot. Woo! Wow.
Thank you.
That's
Thank
something.
you. So
Well,
let's start
blessings.
the declaration, unless you have anything you'd like to say, Glenn.
No, just again, just thank you. It's always been a pleasure. You've been a great host to us coming up to Ottawa and facilitating not only in the space, outside of the space, opening up your home to us, and just sending us and giving us lots of love. So just appreciate who you've been, who your family has been, who you've opened up Ottawa to the Summit family, and it's just been lovely knowing you.
It is so great to hear that, and I appreciate you all so much. You will always be family. I will always be a facilitator of the International Black Summit. I take you everywhere I go. Every speech I've given, I mention the power of this conversation. So there is very few places that have Adrienne Coddett in the space that do not have an awareness of the International Black Summit. Every single question and inquiry is located in their order, along with the purpose and the declaration. They live in my classroom permanently in that space. And students for generations, even undistinguished, have been getting a prerequisite course at the beginning of every semester, because I've started every semester's class with a prerequisite course, essentially introducing them to the ground rules of our class and how we will communicate with each other, and very specifically the group of students in now the 5th cohort of the Black. I forbid them from using Black Youth Conference because it's still vexed. So I forbid them. I forbid them. They tried. They're like, oh, let's call this the Black Youth Conference. And y'all ain't put in on that. You don't get that one. Sorry. I still got some therapy sessions before I'm gonna let y'all do that one to me. Forget it. I paid for 10 therapy sessions. I've only had 8. So y'all ain't gonna get to do that one. And so we've landed on Black Youth Forum, and the upcoming and you can see it online. Last year's first fully virtual, so class has been virtual for 2 years fully, and this is year 2. Year 3 got thrown into a virtual space. And last year's I'll find the link for you all so you can see what it is that, and it's apparently magical to allow young people to create for themselves what they see, because apparently adults think that that's some novel idea. That is you all. That is us in this space, living freely as young people continue, and the adults that get to work with them
Yes.
continue to be
Mhm.
inspired by that as a possibility, know out there, because it's the youth in ourselves that we empower when we release this conversation to the world. So
Thank
thank you so much to each of you.
You're welcome.
Beautiful, beautiful. And for those of you who are listening through our podcast on a podcast platform, or for anybody who's watching on our YouTube channel, we will get that link from Afua, from Adrienne Coddett, and put it into the show notes so that you have access to it. And also for anybody who's interested in finding out about the International Black Summit annual event, because we've referred to it a lot this year. We will be having the 2022 annual event this year. Just go to our website, blacksummit.org. That's blacksummit.org. So
Okay.
let's complete with the declaration of the International Black Summit. Thank you for bringing that up, Joy. Thank you. Adrienne, why don't you, can you generate can you see it well enough to generate it? Okay. All right.
I'll do it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Glenn.
The Declaration of the International Black Summit. We declare ourselves, our community, and all communities whole and complete. There is nothing to do except be. We assert that we are responsible for generating community as possibility and distinction. We listen for and grant being to the possibility and creation of unpredictable results. Our conversation of, about, and for those of African descent is one of power, self-generation, abundance, responsibility, unity, and integrity with the possibility of being. We stand for the expression of our spirituality, ending the murders of our men, women, and children, building economies responsible for funding our community, maintaining wellness of being in our bodies, providing human services, establishing nurturing relationships, altering the conversation of who we are in the media, empowering our youth. We declare that our community manifests itself in the world as a contribution in the transformation of the universe. Atlanta, Georgia, October 7th, 1991, April 3rd, 2022, above, below, and within. And wherever people of Black African descent reside, let's take a moment of silence, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Adrienne. Thank you, Glenn. Thank you to everyone who has listened to this podcast this evening. This is our first International Black Summit monthly podcast. So we hope you'll join us next time when we interview another person who's experienced and been a part of the International Black Summit, sharing how they have been transformed by their participation and how they use the distinctions and tools in their lives, in their careers, in their world. Good night.
Thank you.